Hi, hello, welcome you all competitors to PGTRB English Literature. Let's discuss about modernism and postmodernism. Let's start it from 20th century. The English became standard from the modern age during the period of 19th to 20th century, the mid 19th to 20th century. English became changed as English language literature. English language literature as ELL. In ancient time, the English named as literature of England. Now, the 20th century, English became named as English language literature. It includes writers from England, Scotland, Wales, and North Ireland. England, Scotland, Wales, and whole of the island. Then the term British colonialism. British colonialism is the sense the British government to represent the crown of British government, or we can call it as UK government. The British colonialism had been developed in the period of 20th century. Now we can see about small history of Queen Victoria. In the beginning of the 20th century, in 1901, Queen Victoria was died, and after that, his own son, his second child and eldest son, King Edward II, achieved the crown. King Edward II achieved the crown. The beginning of the 20th century, after the Victorian period, named as Edwardian period by the rule of King Edward II. His period is from 1841 to 1910. Then he was the second child and eldest son of Queen Victoria, and King Edward II was the Prince of Wales and Earl of Chester by his mother. Then the Prince of Wales married Alexandra, the eldest daughter of Prince Christian, later King Christian IX of Denmark. Here we can see the Denmark. It implies that many of the countries and states during this period were get together with another states. Then King Edward II succeeded the throne as King Edward VII. Edward VII. He succeeded the throne as Edward VII by following the death of Queen Victoria. King Edward II succeeded the throne as Edward VII by following the death of Queen Victoria on January 22, 1901. Queen Victoria was died on January 22, 1901 and he was crowned on August 9, 1902. Edward was crowned on August 9, 1902. Then the Victoria's long seclusion as a widow, and Edward died in the period of May 9, 1910. May 9, 1910. King Edward VII achieved the throne in the period is 1902. He became crowned as Edward VII. These are the small history of information about Queen Victoria and Edwardian period. Then the 20th century, the first part of the 20th century has some major literary movements like postmodern literature. The major literary movement is postmodern literature from the first part of the 20th century. We can see about the postmodern literature here. It used to describe certain tendencies in post-World War II literature. Post-World War II literature. So it's called as postmodern literature. Then during this postmodern literature, there were many changes in English language literature. Like English from former British colonies. The British colonies from ancient writers. For British colonies, and also include the extended of United States. The main article is American literature. The postmodern literature is the main article is American literature. Then There were many writers were developed during this 20th century, like Irish writers, American writers, and British writers. For example, Irish writers were James Joyce and Samuel Beckett, or the main and central figure of the Irish writers during the modernist period. Then the American writers like T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, and the famous novelist of American writers is William Faulkner. These are the writers are the most important modernists. Then the British writers mainly of Joseph Kerner, E.M. Forster and Dorothy Richardson, and Virginia Woolf and D.H. Lawrence. These are the main writers of British writers during the modernist period. Then, the mid half of the 20th century, there were many writers from various countries of British Commonwealth states. British Commonwealth states, and also includes the Nobel laureates. The Nobel laureates. The British Commonwealth states included 56 states and English as their common language. The 56 states, united of 56 states, named as Commonwealth nation. Named as Commonwealth nation in British. So this is British Commonwealth states. Then these are the literary modernism in English language literature. These are the literary modernism in English language literature, that is ELL, in all over the world. Then there were not only the Irish writers, American writers and British writers, and also Georgian poet, First World War poet, and African literature, American literature, South African literature and Australian literature, Canadian literature, Caribbean literature, Indian English literature and New Zealand literature, Pakistani literature. These are the literature were developed during the mid half of the 20th century. Then, in myself, I refer these writers while I kept the notes. Now, at present, we are using the British English language. Then move on to postmodernism. Postmodernism in the sense, modernism ending by around 1939. Modernism ending around by 1939, and when modernism gradually disappeared and became the postmodernism has been contested as hotly as when the transition from Victorianism to modernism occurred. And in fact, a number of modern writers were still living and publishing during the periods of 1950s to and 60s centuries. Then the modern writers were published their works until 1985 too. Yes, it was the continuation by the writers of modernist period. And almost the postmodern writers are the Americans. Most probably the postmodern writers are Americans. Then the postmodern literature does not imply it's a new era. Instead, it indicates a reaction against modernism. The postmodern literature reaction against modernism in the period of Second World War. Then the reaction against modernism in the sense the disrespect of human rights. We can see the disrespect of human rights, some of the events like Geneva Convention in 1977, rape of Nanking 1937, atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Here, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki we have studied from our school days. The Hiroshima and Nagasaki, like these are the events, shows the disrespects of human rights. Then, Baton Death March in Philippines in 1942 and bombing of Dresden. Then the firebombing of Tokyo and Japan's of American internment. Tokyo and Japanese of American internment. These are the events or the beginning of the post-colonial literature. Post-colonial literature, that is post-colonialism. Then these are the small information here we concluded about the modernism and postmodernism. Small information about the conclusion of modernism and postmodernism. Now the outline history of English language literature have over. We have discussed Old English as ancient time. Now postmodernism literature. The whole part outline of history of English literature have finished now. In next video we will see about the poetic structure and its types. Thank you for watching all. Thank you.